Hey everyone, hope everything's going well. Today we have a new guest, and he is one of the channels that I frequently go to. He is Bo from 1 Million Cubs Project. What's going on, Bo?
Hey, what's happening? Thanks for having me on tonight.
Yeah, for sure. I had to get you on. I mean, at least there's a huge Cubs fan that's in the hobby that does social media, and I know you're big on Twitter, so I definitely needed to have you on.
I appreciate it.
Okay, so just an introduction to you. So what got you started in the hobby for those that don't know you or don't follow you too much?
I've been collecting kind of like I just turned 40, so a lot of guys my age, gals my age, we started in that junk wax era, and that's where it all started for me. What really sucked me, and especially with collecting Cubs cards, was 1989 tops. My mom sent away 10 UPC codes from whatever cereal boxes, and with with that, I got a team set, and a team set of your choice. So obviously, I wanted a Cubs team set, and I remember waiting 6 to 8 weeks for that team set to come in the mail, and opening it up and looking through all the Cubs cards, the complete team set, and I was just enamored by the 1989 Cubs. So that's kind of where it all began. I opened a few packs here and there in like 1988 and 89, but that 89 tops team set that I got through the mail was, what really kick-started my my hobby love.
Oh yeah, 1989. I wasn't that old. I do remember who was on the team. It was Mark Gray, Sandberg, Greg Maddux, I believe, and then a few others.
Yeah, Jerome Walton and Dwight Smith, who just recently passed away just a few days ago. They were runners up for the Rookie of the Year award. So it was the boys of Zimmer was a fun season. I was only 7, so but it was kind of like the coming of when you get to be about that age, you start really kind of understanding things. And even though I didn't really understand the game of baseball, but I knew the players. I was a big Jerome Walton fan. I was a big Sandberg, Grace fan. So that's when I really, started to, follow baseball.
Yeah. For me, it was the 1998 season with Kerry Wood striking out 20 and then Sammy Sosa. At the time, I thought, oh, that was amazing, hitting 66 home runs. And then all of a sudden, 2003, we find out it was all a sham. But
yeah,
that's what got me in.
That's what brought me back.
It did. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I stopped really, and it's not strike related. I mean, I think the strike pushed me over.
Yeah.
But like Shaq, when Shaq came on in the NBA in like 1992,
yeah,
I was really following basketball, like especially the NBA, college basketball. So I became a huge basketball fan in like 92, 93. And so that affected my trading card collecting. And so I was buying basketball cards instead of baseball cards. And then when baseball went on strike in 94, that just out of sight, out of mind. And I stopped following it, for the next 4 years until 98. The Cubs had a really good start to that season in April. And that's when I started to realize, because some of the years, 95, 96, 97, those Cubs teams were brutally bad. And then all of a sudden, 98, they start so hot. And so I guess I jumped on the bandwagon. And then Kerry Wood on May 6th with the 20 strikeouts. And then, of course, by June, you had the home run chase. And that just completely sucked me back in. And I've been like, baseball's been number one sport for me since that 98 season.
Yeah, let's look at a comment from Bob Boozle. This is like the Superman of Batman of Cubs collectors joining forces.
Love it.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I think about that 1998 season. They had Rod Beck. I think he closed out that. Was that the 163rd game? Do you remember that?
Yeah, the one game playoff against the Giants. And I think I listened to that game on the because I started collecting baseball cards again in 98. And I would go down to there was the closest. I grew up in a really small town in Illinois, and I was about a half an hour from the Quad Cities, and there was a small local card shop that that I started going to. I just got my driver's license that summer. So I remember driving back, and I don't know if it was that game or the one game I do recall from '98 was the Brant Brown.
Yeah, I was just
drop
thinking of that.
fly
I was going to
ball.
bring that. Yeah. Yeah,
And,
a lot of
and I can still hear Ron Santo's voice in that play.
yeah, exactly. Like a lot of people that aren't from the Chicagoland area just I think it was during the playoff chase, and it was what, September, I assume. And then there's an outfielder, I think center fielder Brant Brown. The ball was hit to him, and then he just dropped the ball. And then Ron Santo just had an amazing radio play-by-play. As a Cubs fan, I won't forget that.
I mean, his reaction on radio was like the reaction of all of us watching or listening.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, man, Santo was so great. And that call is just like, when I think of, when I think of the '98 season, there's a lot of different things you can bring up, but that's definitely like top 3 to 5 memories from that season was, and unfortunately it didn't cost the Cubs a playoff spot. They win the 1-game playoff and get in, but it was pretty, did we lose the first series in '98? I think I can't
against the Braves. I think that's right. It was, I think, a sweep. I think the Braves swept the Cubs.
It was, yep.
But it was still, I mean, still good memories, looking back at it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that was the same year Harry Carey passed away. Was that before the season?
It was. So he passed away I think right before spring training. I think right before players started reporting to spring training.
Yeah, he was supposed to do games with his grandson, Chip Carey.
Yeah.
I think right now he's on Turner or TBS.
Yeah.
But yeah. All righty. So going into your 1 million Cubs project, what is your main goal for that?
I want to get to 1 million Cubs, and people are like, why? And the number one question I get asked is, do duplicates count? And yes, they do. There's roughly 200,000, I think, unique Cubs cards in the entire existence of baseball cards. So I have probably 2,000 1987 Topps Ryan Sandberg cards, and people say, why? And I had just accumulated, when I started this project in 2017, I had accumulated about 1 million cards total, and most of which were 80s and 90s, just junk wax, but I always set aside the Cubs cards. I'd get rid of the common Braves cards, Dodgers cards, but I'd always keep the Cubs cards. And then I thought 1 million's a lot of cards, and a lot of people throw the term million around pretty loosely and don't realize the scope of what 1 million baseball cards is. And so it's hard to get rid of. I don't want to just throw the cards away. So I done a lot of team trades over the years, and I know that there's other team collectors out there like, hey, I'll trade you 50 Cubs cards for 50 Braves cards, and 500. So that's kind of how it's like I needed a hook, and the hook was 1 million, and I have 1 million trading cards. I'll trade them off for 1 million Cubs cards, and that'll help me along the way. So it's kind of the collection and my focus has kind of evolved throughout the 3.5-4 years, but I'm still on the mission to collect 1 million Cubs, and I'm getting close, about 825,000. I've got a bunch that I need to count, but still a ways to go, but it's the end. The light is at the end of the tunnel now.
So where do you store them? That would be a lot. I mean, I thought I had a lot of cards, but then seeing, you're collecting 1 million, that's intense.
So I have a card room that's next to me, and it's just completely filled with cards. The Cubs cards, as I obviously accumulate more and more Cubs cards, take up a lot of space in that room. I've got a closet that's basically packed. It's about a 6 foot wide by 12 to 15 feet long, kind of storage closet, and it's stacked boxes are stacked about 8 feet tall all the way from front to back. So that's kind of like the overflow, a lot of the commons. And then I've I've kind of infiltrated the other storage area that's my wife and I's, storage area where the cards aren't supposed to go, but they've snuck into that room as well. So it's taking up a significant amount of room in my basement.
Are you ever worried about a flood or some water damage or anything like that?
I was, but not anymore. So we had about 5 years ago, we had a massive flood here I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. We had like 15, 16 inches of rain within a 24-hour time period. And a lot of basements flood. I mean, streets were flooded. It was just, it was, once in many lifetime floods, once in many centuries flood. And my mother-in-law's basement was flooding. So we were kind of going back and forth, trying to help hers. I was like freaking out about our basement, and we did not get not a drop, 15, 16 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. And our basement was bone dry. So now I'm pretty content. The only thing I would have to worry about would be like a water pipe breaking, freezing. So that's always, and I think no matter where you store your cards, there's always a fear of, whether it's water or fire, there's always that fear. But with that rain, at least I know what my basement, can take. So I'm a little less worried after having that rainfall.
Yeah, I try to diversify, meaning that I try to put my cards in different locations. So if I get dinged here, then at least I have some of my cards there, because I don't want to put, all my eggs in one basket, that phrase. But
absolutely.
Yeah, it's just intense. So I asked you before the stream if you had any favorite Cubs cards that you have. Do you have them on hand?
I do. So I keep some of my favorite cards. I'm in my rec room, and I keep some on a shelf. So I pulled some of my favorites, and this is I'll start with most of my favorite cards are, and what I focus on when I'm buying not bulk is like pre-war and tobacco. So I'll share some of those, but first some modern cards. This is the Chris Bryant,
Okay.
For first Bowman Chrome auto, which was actually in packs of like Bowman Inception, I think it says. It was supposed to be released in 2013. They didn't make them in those packs in time, so they were released in some 2014 packs. This was actually a gift from a lot of my hobby friends, and it's a hobby buyer's first Bowman Chrome. I had one, but it was in a BCCG slab. So it was always a card that I wanted to get either raw or another graded copy of it, because I hate BCCG slabs. This was a gift from a bunch of friends in the hobby. So one of my top cards. This is one I picked up at the National last year, and it's a Mecca Cigarettes, and I can't remember if this was 1913 or 14, but it's actually a folder. It's a double folder, and this is Chance and Evers. So this is Johnny Evers on the front, and then there's just a small. The other side has Frank Chance on the back. So I got a good deal on this on the last day of the National. I was actually walking out the door, and I saw that, and I made an offer, and the dealer accepted. So I was pretty happy to go. This is one of my oldest cards. I have a couple copies of 1887 Old Judge. So this is Duke Farrell from the Chicago White Stockings, which was the original name of the Cubs. So this is SGC is my favorite, especially when it comes to these pre-war tobacco cards. It really that black matte background really makes the tobacco cards pop much better than the PSA holders in the Beckett slabs. So this was the first one I bought, and then I have a second Old Judge, and I can't think of the player that the second one that I bought, but the Cap Anson, Allen, and Ginter from the same year, 1887, is like the number one on my list. And this was another national pickup from last year. This is another Johnny Evers and Frank Chance. This is a T202. These are the triple folders from 1912, I think. Does it say on the slab? 1912, yeah. So I actually picked up 2 of these at the National last year, and I've picked up a couple more. And I love these. You got the action shot in the middle, and then the portraits on each side. So those are some of my favorites. And I've kind of started a Joe Tinker collection on the side. I just submitted for the first time. I've never submitted cards for grading, but I did so yesterday. I submitted 5 cards for grading through SGC, 3 of which were Joe Tinker cards that were raw copies. One I picked up at the National, and then a couple that I've just picked up over the last couple of years. So those are some of the top Cubs cards that in my collection that I like.
Yeah, I'd show you some of my cards, but I didn't realize I was going to be staying a little longer at my parents' house today. But yeah, and next time I'll show them. I have a good, nice Ernie Banks. Do you have any Ernie Banks cards?
I do. I have the complete Topps run, and I have his rookie card. I think it's in the rookie was actually on display, and I put, how many did I show off? 4 or 5. So I have 6, 7, 8. So I have eight stands on my shelf. So I do have an Ernie Banks rookie. It was a pretty cool trade from a collector that I got on from Twitter. And this was a few years ago, where I had, at one point, I was blogging a lot up until probably around the pandemic. And then I switched over and did more YouTube content as opposed to writing. But I was doing a lot of blogs. And I at one point a few years ago did a top 10 most wanted Cubs cards for my collection. And the Ernie Banks rookie was number 1. And at the time it was like, that's a card that I think every, like, you know, if you're like a big time Cubs collector, you've got to have the Ernie Banks rookie card. And so it's like, I'm a million Cubs. I'm 1 million Cubs. I'm going for 1 million Cubs. I wanted it to be initially the last card, like the 1,000,000th card. But then the more I thought about it, it's like, but it's Mr. Cub. It's Ernie Banks. Like I should have it. So I like shopped every once in a while. And, you know, I was always kind of kicking the tires on copies. All of a sudden I get a direct message on Twitter from somebody, and it's like, hey, I've got a package coming your way. He's like, I think you're going to like it. So I open it up, and there's like some vintage, like 50s cards. And the bottom card was a 1954 Topps Ernie Banks rookie card. And I'm like, wait, this has got to be a reprint. And I'm looking, I'm like, this is original. And so I reached out to him. And there was a letter with it, and it was from his father's collection, who had just passed away. And it just so happened the same time he was right around the same time as his dad passed away, like the same day, the next day, whatever. He happened to see my blog post on top 10 Cubs cards, and he's like, this was my, part of my dad's collection. It should go to somebody who's going to really appreciate it. And it just blew me away. And that's, I think, one of the things that's really blown me away with this project, and, becoming more and more active on social media and now YouTube, is just the kindness of strangers, willing to help out, a stranger trying to collect 1 million Cubs cards. And then, to have some of the graciousness of various collectors has been really awesome.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I have some 87 or cards from the 1980s that I bought, junk wax era. Maybe I should send you some of them. I have no use for them. So if you want it, I'll maybe message you. And hey, can people just start sending you random Cubs cards they don't want? Because I think I want to see you have 1 million cards. I think that'd be amazing. And, me being a Cubs fan, so I'd like to definitely help you out. And I'm sure other people would as well, So do you accept these donations from people?
Absolutely. And pretty much you can find the 1millioncubs.com website was where I did a lot of blogging. Now it's just kind of my hub for, my social media. It points you in various directions to my different channels, but my address is on there. So I have a PO box. And you can find that at 1millioncubs.com. And then other way, my email and YouTube channel and eBay store link and other social media channels. So 1millioncubs.com is pretty much the spot to find me.
Yeah, indeed. I'm definitely gonna send you some cards, and everyone else, you send them your Cubs cards that you don't want. All righty, let's read some more comments here. Sports Card Show, aka Ziggy No. I don't know if you know him.
I do. What's up, Ziggy? Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And Glorious P, another channel on YouTube. Two smart dudes. Thanks, man.
Appreciate that.
Yep. So I wanted to ask you, maybe besides the Cubs winning the World Series in 2016, what's your favorite Cubs memory? Besides that,
ooh, that's a tough one. I think going into Wrigley Field for the first time was, that's overwhelming. I grew up, and we talked about this before we went on I grew up downstate, like in rural Illinois. And even though I was, I don't know, maybe 2.5 hours from Wrigley Field, I never went as a kid. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, so didn't really get to the city that often. And never went to a Cubs game until I think I was 21 before I went to Wrigley Field for the very first time. So we're talking the early 2000s. But I can still remember the very first time I hit that concourse and that smell, which now I don't like the smell of underneath Wrigley Field, but that smell, that overwhelming smell of Italian beef and hot dogs and stale beer. I think that was, that's up there. There's just so many that stick out. Cubs conventions through the years. I go to a lot of the Club 400 events, which is basically a guy's basement, but that's like the understatement of the century. It's basically a Cubs museum, and he hosts big events with Cubs players. And you get to hang out with former Cubs and even current Cubs. Patrick Wisdom was there in December. Frank Schwindel was there in January. You name the Cub, they've likely been there. I think Chris Bryant's about the only big name Cub that hasn't been there in the last couple of years, last few years. But there's so many memories. But I guess if I had to say one, that first whiff of Wrigley Field and just all the times in Wrigleyville and just around the Cubs, and then memories of Harry Carey. That was the soundtrack to my childhood, listening to Harry Carey and Steve Stone and everyone. In fact, the other day I was listening to a random game on YouTube, just a Reds Cubs game from 1989, just to hear Harry's voice again. So there's just so many. It's hard to pick out one. Being a Cubs fan, for a lifetime, it's kind of hard. Of course, the World Series, number one, but the second place is hard to come up with.
Yeah, I think, there's so many memories for me. One of them I was going to say was Brant Brown, just hearing Ron Santo's epic rant or enthusiasm, passion. And then I don't know if you watched the clip of Ozzy Osbourne doing the 7th inning stretch.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. He was, I don't know what he was saying. It was like after this podcast is over, guys, just go to YouTube and watch Ozzy Osbourne doing the 7th inning stretch. That's just the funniest things that you'll see. And then Kerry Wood was looking at him like, what the hell is going on?
And around that same time, Steve McMichael was kicked out after he did the 7th inning stretch. I think it was like right around, if it wasn't the same season as Ozzy Osbourne, it was like the year before, the year after, and he got ejected from the booth by Angel Hernandez. And I can't remember what he said, but it was when he took the microphone to sing the 7th inning stretch. He made a comment about, I think it was Angel Hernandez's calls, and he got the heave ho from the press box.
I don't remember that. I remember one time Mike Ditka was late in 98, and then he sang it so fast.
Yep.
Yeah, that was also a good one. All right, let's read some more comments, and maybe you could answer this. Grunt Sports Dad, Ola from South Korea. Oh, interesting.
Nice.
Nice. Appreciate the content. Any thoughts on Anika Horner? He seems like a solid young player, but no power. Bad for cards, right? Your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think he's going to be a solid major league player, but yeah, he doesn't have power, and that's when it comes to hobby darlings, it's the long ball, and I think he's going to be a solid player, but uh, as far as rookie cards and his value in the hobby is not going to be there like those home run hitters, those power hitters. So, but I think he's going to be a good player. Maybe even make a couple all-star teams at some point in his career. Hopefully not, because the Cubs are so bad and they just have to by default have an all-star. Hopefully it's a pretty deserving appearance, but I think he has the potential, and I'm not saying he's going to go on and become a multi-time all-star, but I think he has the potential to make a couple all-star teams.
Yeah. So where's the Cubs team going now with Jed Hoyer running the show? And I know during the pandemic they had to cut payroll because they didn't get revenue in. I don't know. I mean, I was just used to winning the past 5-6 years, and now I'm like, oh, it's back to the good old days, right? You just go to the game and just have fun, and
it's really disappointing. First, the team crying poor. They have money, and it's like every team had revenue issues over 2020, 2021, and there's the Jason Hayward contract. It's a really bad contract now. But it's just the whole crying poor really kind of grates my nerves. Among other things with how the team is being run, but it's really disappointing that in 2013-14 they sell off the team, which at the time I thought was a great. I was like, yeah, let's rip this team apart, start from scratch, let's do it. But don't do it every 5 years. The whole purpose of tearing the team down and rebuilding from scratch was to get a core group of players, and then as they develop and hit free agency, you have the next group of young prospects ready to come along. And through just not drafting the right talent, and they hit some home runs on first round talent, but when you look from rounds 2 to 20 or 2 to 40 at those times, they didn't hit any home runs, I don't think, in the later rounds. So that really set the team back. And then contract like Jason Hayward's contract that set the team back. They nailed some trades. They failed a couple trades. I mean, you look at Theo's trades in like the 5 years he was with the Cubs in charge. It's like the top 5 trades and the bottom 5 trades. I mean, it's like these are like all-time great trades in franchise history. And then the worst trades are like the all-time worst trades in franchise history. Trading for Quintana, giving up Dylan Cease and Eloy Jimenez. And then early on, trading DJ LeMahieu for Ian Stewart. I mean, those are 2 all-time just terrible trades. But then you get Rizzo for Cashner. You get Jake Arrieta and Pedro Strop for Scott Feldman. So, it's top heavy and bottom heavy. But, I think there were a lot of different things along the way that the core didn't really produce after 2017. Those guys really fell off. And, I hated to see Rizzo, Bryant, Baez get traded last year at the deadline, but they weren't producing. And so I think a lot of Cubs fans had their blue and red 2016 World Series glasses on, kind of obstructing their view of the current talent and what they were providing the team, which was missing the playoffs, excuse me, or getting to the playoffs and losing the first series or the play-in game. So to at least get something, and they did, time will tell, I guess, but I was pretty happy with the prospects that the team got in return for those guys.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about previous trades. I mean, trading Gleyber Torres for Chapman, even though I didn't like getting rid of Gleyber Torres, it was worth it because you got a ring through it. So, I mean, yeah, Theo, it's a mixed bag because, yeah, he did win a World Series. It's great. But then it's like you're hungover the day after, and it's what Jason Hayward now you have left. And pretty much no one from that 2016 team is on there. Maybe Contreras, he's going to be gone by the end of the year. Hendricks, he isn't what he used to be like in 2016, but I'm still happy. I got to see one in my lifetime and never thought it happened. So
Exactly.
I'll take it.
Exactly. I love love that we got the World Series, but now it's like, I think Wilson, like you mentioned, I think he's gone, which sucks. I hope there's rumors of Ian Happ, and it's like, why trade Ian Happ? Because he's not a free agent at the end of the year. So it's not like he's walking at the end of the year. I think he has another year of control. So, why dismantle this team again when it's been dismantled? Now this is the time where the Cubs should be spending some money and compete. It's Chicago. It's the Chicago Cubs. They have money. So
unless they're trying to go for Soto or someone like that.
Yeah. And I don't know. That would be an interesting, I think one of the blogs had posted like a hypothetical, like it won't happen. I found it interesting. I was listening to MLB Network a few days ago, and John Heyman was talking. They'd asked John Heyman about, who does Juan Soto get traded to? And he goes, well, first off, the ideal landing spot for Juan Soto will never happen. But I think the team that should be making a play for Juan Soto is the Chicago Cubs. And I found that to be really interesting coming from him. He's like, but there's no way it's going to happen. But I think that's the Cubs should be, building for the future and building for the near term future, like for next year. Not in 5 years, not, giving up some of their, key players for low A prospects.
Yeah. I remember the long-term contract of Alfonso Soriano. And that was, that was just a mess.
Yeah.
Huge mess.
Yep.
Good old days with the Tribune.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Was it Sam Zell? He owned the Cubs for a little bit.
Yep. Sam Zell.
Yep. All right. Let's look at some comments here. Tim says the Pirates got the young players. I don't follow the Pirates, so I wouldn't know.
They do. Yeah, they have some pretty good talent down there in the system.
Low Roller Scratcher says, hey, good evening. And he says, Goodwill Palette is a good way to build more inventory with hidden gems. This is something that you would probably know a lot more as you're a dealer or you sell.
Yeah, I just bought a Goodwill Palette this week. So I kind of, it's a big bulk buy, dig through it. In fact, my rec room floor, I can actually, since I'm in the rec room, I can kind of show what my floor looks like.
Wow. That's a lot of cards, man.
So I've been, and that's just the kind of the tip of the iceberg for the palette that I just bought. Most of it's still in my car because I just haven't had time to go through it. So that's the Goodwill Palette.
Yeah, transitioning into what you do for a living. So you buy basically in bulk and you try to resell. So how does the market look? I mean, we see, I talk about, sports cards have gone down. Other people have been talking about it as well. So does this impact you at all, or it doesn't really since you're buying in bulk? Or
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely impacts me. And, I've seen a steady decline in buyers, but I'm still, I have enough inventory to where I can like keep ahead of things, but it does take a lot more inventory to sell the same amount that I was doing even a year ago. I was moving through at the height of the pandemic. I was moving through nearly 2.5% of my inventory on a daily basis. Today it's 0.5%. So basically I have to put in 4 to 5 times the amount of work to make the same, sales that I was making a year and a half ago. So it's definitely an impact. With what I sell, there are still buyers. I sell, a lot of low end cards. Something that really surprised me. I also promote a card show here in Madison, Wisconsin. I had a show yesterday, and a lot of people were saying the Nationals next week. How is that going to impact traffic at the card show? People aren't going to go because they're going to save their money for the National. And really, when I held the show the same weekend a year ago, and the show was in Rosemont, the National was in Rosemont. And I bet 80 to 90% of the people I talked to at my Madison show 2 hours away were not going to the National, just down the road in Rosemont. So, I think that's going to be even smaller percentage of people who are going to get on a plane and fly out to the East Coast, to Atlantic City, which isn't an easy destination to get to. But what I was surprised at the show yesterday, I didn't think the National would be an impact on my card show, but I was wrong. There were a lot of buyers. There were big time buyers that came to the show looking to get deals and get cards to take out to the National next week. So most of my dealers reported the best sales day out of any show of the year. I know now as I get ready to schedule 2023 when I'm going to hold the show next year, and it's going to be the same weekend, just to capture that interest. And maybe it's even a bigger sales day because the show's closer. More people will be looking to buy to take to Rosemont's National next year. So we'll see. But as we all know, how much can the market change in a year? Look at how much it's changed within the last year. And will it change for the better or for the worse in the next year? I'm a realist, and I think if any direction, it would go in the wrong direction, and it would continue to decline. I've been surprised with how long this hobby boom has continued. I mean, I think we're still in a boom period of cards. It's, if you compare, 2020 was such an outlier with the pandemic. Everybody was buying everything. But also nobody was going anywhere. You couldn't, restaurants were closed. There was no sporting events. There were no concerts. People had extra income, extra money just to spend on hobbies. I think that now we're in a phase where it's everything's open back up. People are spending their money elsewhere, but I've been surprised by the amount of money that's stayed in the hobby, despite the other hobby interests that are back open.
That makes sense. Have you ever thought about taking some of the cards that you bought and then setting them off for grading and then selling them, or no, that's just too much work?
I've thought about it. I've considered it a few times. I don't know enough about the process. I know the basics of grading, but when it comes down to what's the difference between a 9 and an 8 and a 7, I don't. I have a Ron Santo rookie that I bought at one of my shows. It's a PSA 3. And if I were to look at it, I'm like, well, this is an easy 6, maybe even a 7. And it's a 3. And it's like, how in the heck did this get a 3? So when I see some of those examples, I realize this just ain't a game I want to play. The first submission I ever did, I mentioned it, earlier. Yesterday, I subbed 5 of my Cubs cards to SGC, and it's for my own personal collection. Now, do I buy slabs? For my own collection, I dabbled last year at the National. I bought about 30 or 35 modern basketball Prism rookie slabs, and it was a big time loser. I didn't, I probably broke even or lost money, but at the end of the day, it was a loss because I just moved the last of them a few weeks ago for $5 each. I think I had about $12 each into them. I had a couple good sales. There was like a Jordan pool, so I was able to get some decent return on that. But for the most part, after that, a couple $20 sales and, a few $10 sales, and then the rest were $5. So it was a poor exercise. But that's a lane that's successful for many people within the hobby. And that's kind of what I like to share, on my channel is, there's many ways you can make money doing anything in the hobby. And it doesn't have to be what I do, which is buy Goodwill pallets and bulk lots and grind it out and piece it out on $2 sales on eBay. It can be flipping high dollar cards. It can be buying raw and submitting for grading. There's a lane for just about anything. But I think the key is pick a lane and stick to that lane. Because, once you start getting all over the place just with anything, I don't think you can have as big a success as you can as long as you, become an expert in one niche.
Yeah, exactly. Stick to your spots. Like Michael Jordan shouldn't be owning basketball teams. He should just be focusing on the game. But all jokes aside, let's read a few comments. Charles, he says, Mark Grace was the best Cub ever. Yay or nay?
Nay. I mean, I like Mark Grace. He was a great hitter.
Yeah, exactly.
But that 89, and again, 89 tops, man, that rookie gold cup Mark Grace card, one of my favorites. But
yeah, I take Sandberg over Grace, but then
for
Ernie
sure.
Banks,
yeah, absolutely.
Ernie Banks. All right. Steve says, who knew rising COVID cards or COVID cases made sports cards more valuable? Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, it had to deal with the economy being shut down, and then they're giving us, or at least some people, free money. So what are you going to do with free money? No sports games, no entertainment.
Yep.
It was, something we probably won't see again, but
hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. All right, let's look at this. Just in inventory, I think your business model is recession proof. Outside of cosmetics and alcohol, people will buy inexpensive cards forever. I believe that's the case too. Probably maybe lower sales in a recession, but still people will buy cards in my opinion.
I agree. For the most part, I agree. There's I do the low dollar cards will definitely continue to sell during recessions. The what slows it down is kind of like what I said. The sell-throughs are going to decline. There's going to be less. There's still going to be buyers, but there's going to be less buyers. But overall, I think, there's going to be some lean times, and there will definitely be leaner times ahead. I don't think this is, I don't think we've hit by, the hobby is, just look at the history of, if you've collected for, 20, 30, 40 years, just look at the ebbs and flows of, the trading card market. And, even people saying, oh my God, the cards are never going to go down. It's like, look,
you're being negative now. I get called negative every freaking video in the comments. Like, okay,
take a look at the history. It's like we're due. It's just,
exactly.
It's not negativity. It's realism. It's
exactly
being a realist.
Exactly. So just like you did a video on sports card radio and you just said that, hey, they're just, saying what they believe and they're just giving their opinion and,
maybe it's, some people may think it's negative, but it's, for the most part, everything they say is true. That, everything that I'm aware of that I, view of that content, it's like, they ain't wrong. Like, I'm sorry that it's negative, but no, it's the truth.
Truth sometimes hurts.
It does.
All right, let's look at a few more comments before. Ernie is the greatest Cub ever. There you go.
It's hard for me to like, a lot of people do like the Mount Rushmore of, baseball cards, the Cubs. And I think it's so hard to do that in baseball, even comparing Ernie Banks to, Sandberg or Chris Bryant, because the game changes so much through the decades. And then, of course, you go back to the 1800s and Cap Anson in the late 1800s and Tinker, Evers, and Chance in the early 1900s, and then Gabby Hartnett, Hack Wilson. There's so many like great Cubs, and it's like, how do you? And I don't think you can. I don't think it's a how. It's you just can't. You can't compare because the game has changed so much. So it's
Exactly.
really hard for me to, like maybe pick an era. Like, okay, the dead ball era. My head on Mount Rushmore is this guy. The vintage era, or the golden age era, this guy. Modern era, current. So
there we go. All right, I like this comment. Carlos Zambrano is greater than Mark. I don't know who he's talking about, Mark Pryor, but just joking. I miss Big Z's passion. Yeah, he used to like curse in his glove all the time.
Beat up Gatorade buckets.
Yeah, bucket. Yeah, that guy was interesting.
He was fiery.
Yeah, very fiery when he was about 23. I don't know. Remember that 2004 Cubs team where they had like everyone and they were on the cover, I think, of Sports Illustrated saying that they're going to win the World Series?
Yeah.
I don't know how that team didn't get to the World Series. I don't know.
Some of those mid 2000 teams were like, the results were really disappointing. 03, 04.
Yeah.
07, 08. Those four teams, it's like, man, those 4 seasons and you get one trip to the NLCS. Was there an NLCS trip in 08? I can't remember.
I don't think it was NLCS. I think it was just all NLDS. Because
yeah, I think that was the year. I think 08 was they were like heavily favored because they won the division in 07, and then 08 they were like favored to, World Series favorites, and yeah, it must have been, I can't remember who they played in the postseason, but I get all those teams run together now.
Yeah, I mean, I think Zambrano had the no-hitter in 2008.
Yeah.
And that was the same day Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy. I remember. It was a weird time, but yeah. So I know we have a little more than 10 minutes, but the National is coming in a week, and you're not going. So people, you sometimes come after people not going to the National, but what are your thoughts about the National? And from there.
I think the National is the Disney World of card collecting, the Super Bowl of the hobby. But I also realize, and I think I might have talked about this even this morning on my show, that, card shows aren't for everybody. And I started going through my head of how many card shows I went, and I was, I kind of returned to the hobby and collecting around 2012. And I started thinking between 2012 and 2020, I only went to like 3 or 4 card shows, like in that 6-year, 8-year time period. And I was heavily involved in like on social media, on Blowout forums, Beckett forums back earlier than that. But I wasn't a card show guy. I loved cards. I loved collecting. I just didn't like going to card shows. But I will say, if you do enjoy going to a card show, or, if the National is, within reasonable distance from you, or you want to make it a trip, I would definitely encourage anybody that's never gone just to go and check it out. I always say it's hard to take it all in one day, even 2 days. I mean, heck, my first year, I was finding new tables like the 4th or 5th day that I was there. It's overwhelming. It really, and even to me, and I've only been to 2. In my second National last year, it was like, I knew what to expect, and it was still overwhelming. But yeah, I think the National's awesome. I'm not going this year. I'm sick and tired of hearing everybody talk about it, but it's because I'm not going. And if you're not going, you don't care because it's a card show. Yeah, I'll be interested. I'll follow people, I'll follow YouTube content from the National just to see what's going on. But really, at the end of the day, if you're not going, it's out of sight, out of mind. You don't really care. But next year, I'll be excited and I'll be there in Rosemont and I'll have an awesome time. And I'm going to try to remind myself to shut up about going to the National next year and remember, this year. And it's like, okay, you don't have to give us a 120-day countdown, 119, 118, and talk about the National every day. Because most people, and that's what I try to, get across on my show. It's like less than 1% of active collectors are going to the National. Like when you think in the grand scheme of who's actively in the hobby collecting cards, and it could be somebody down the street that picks up a blaster box at Walmart once a month, they're still active in the hobby. They're not likely to go to the National. So that's kind of my spin on the National.
Yeah, and Bob Boozle just says, I'm with you on National fatigue. Yep, indeed. It's just too hyped, in my opinion. Too much hype, BS. Just keep it real. Exactly. That's how I think. So let's look at Fanatics. What are your initial thoughts on Fanatics? I have a lot of opinions, but I'd like to hear what you have to say. And I've seen some of your videos too, and you've talked about it. But for those that have missed your commentary, what are your thoughts?
I'm keeping an open mind. Obviously, my initial reaction was, "Oh crap," and not that word. But as I thought about it, and as it moves on, I'm keeping an open mind. I'm trying to be positive. I don't think the end result. I don't know. It could be. It could be way better. Here's the thing: a year ago, or whenever the announcement was made. When was the announcement? I can't remember the announcement. But whenever, a year ago, 2 years ago, everybody complained about Topps. Topps sucks. They don't have to be good because there's no competition. But now it's Fanatics, and they want to do all this. They want to have kind of their hand in everything. And is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. I'm taking a wait and see approach. I think right now I'm like, I don't have a positive or a negative reaction to what's been done so far. It's still so new. We don't really know what they're going to do. We know the talk, but we really haven't seen the actions. So I'm keeping an open mind. So I really don't have a strong opinion one way or the other.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking at when they get the other sports. I know you're a baseball guy, but I also follow other sports. And when they get that Topps Chrome license for NFL back and NBA, I'd be really interested to see that. But I mean, now they have baseball, or they have the Topps brand, but I don't know. I mean, I've bought a few cards here and there, some Tony Kukoc cards, but nothing too much. It will be interesting how they will be in the next few years, in my opinion, though.
I think I think Fanatics will have those football and basketball licenses sooner than the contracts. The contracts are up in 2025, 2026. Yeah. I think Fanatics takes them much sooner because I think that by the end of this year, there's an announcement that Fanatics buys Panini. That's my prediction, and I think it's going to happen fairly soon.
Yeah. That's the rumor. That's what a lot of people think, because what does Panini have to offer after that? They're going to go after non-licensed cards, and that's not what they do. I mean, Leaf, I know, does that with college athletes or athletes that are just trying to transitioning from, I believe, college to pro. I know they do a lot of football cards with that, but that's not Panini's strength.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. I mean, I think they should have taken an offer maybe earlier on, but I don't know. You think they're going to get Upper Deck?
No. I think Upper Deck will. I think they're pretty firm, and they re-upped with the NHL, and I think that relationship, Upper Deck's just gonna keep on doing what they're doing. I don't see really any need for Upper Deck to sell, and I don't see a need for Fanatics to get that hockey license. Now that's coming from a guy that doesn't watch hockey, doesn't care about hockey cards, so take that opinion for what it's worth.
Let's look at a few more comments before we wrap this up. This is earlier on. Inglorious P, he says, could your lower sell-through rate be due to having more listings, larger inventory that may not be desirable?
Yep, absolutely. So that's actually a big reason why it's dipped down to 0.5%. It's probably closer to like a 0.6% in reality, because I've really been adding a ton of inventory lately. And those numbers are really skewed. So the daily and just to kind of clarify what my sell-through rate is. So I calculated it's not something that is calculated within your eBay summary. So I take a snapshot from, your phone app. It has the 90-day stats. So I take items sold within the last 90 days, divide that number by 90. That comes up with your average daily sales over that 3-month period. And then take that number, that daily number, divided by your current active listings. So that number is going to be skewed. I could take a snapshot right now, sell a couple cards, and it's going to slightly skew that number in 15 minutes. So I try to take that snapshot around the same time of day, just to, get the most accurate time of day count. But, I take that snapshot right now, but I go upstairs and list 300 cards and only sell 5 in that same length of time. It's going to skew the numbers a little bit. So I have been, adding a lot more listings here over the last couple of weeks. So that does drive that sell-through rate number down. And then I'll start to see that bounce back up. The last few days I haven't listed. I had my show yesterday, so I haven't listed anything in my eBay store in volume in about 3 days. So that number kind of ticks back up. So yes, it absolutely does have some reflection on added inventory.
Have you spotted a gem in any of the palettes that you bought, or not
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. So I think my number one card was a Mike Trout rookie that sold for $600. The palette, by the way, the palette was $450.
Oh, nice.
And it was about 150,000 cards and a $600 sale on the Mike Trout. So that was a winner. That was actually the first palette I bought. The second highest sale on a single card was a rare Marvel promo from the mid 90s. And that sold for about 400. The third highest, a ticket stub. It was for, and I'm here in Wisconsin, so it was a Milwaukee Bucks ticket stub. It was from 2014. I'm like, hey, that's Giannis's rookie year. So it was actually his home debut as a rookie in 2014. So that sold for $225. So those are the 3 highest sales. But I find a lot of, like, just recently Friday night, I was going through and I found a slug of 70s cards. There were some early 70s hockey cards that I don't think I have one on the top, but it sells raw for about $15. So there's a lot of like $20, $50 cards, $20 to $50 cards that, are hidden gems within the palettes. So it's a lot of fun to find, because sometimes you look through it, it's like, oh, this is all junk wax. And then there's a small pile of 70s cards.
There you go. Last question before we end this. Bob Oozle, how will you celebrate the 1 millionth card?
So I don't know, with my focus now more on my business. It's my pursuit to 1 million is slowing down a little bit. I'm at about 825,000 Cubs cards. My goal for this year was 900,000, and then I was hoping to make a final push just in time for the National next year, since it is in Chicago, and I wanted that, millionth card to be the Cap Anson that I mentioned. I think I mentioned I want to, that's kind of the Grail card in original Cap Anson from Allen and Ginter. So that's what I would like now my millionth card to be. But I don't know if I'll get to that point, a million by next July. I've got 1 year, but I need to collect 175,000. So it's going to be a pretty big hill to climb. I do have some big bulk, some guys that I buy, bulk Cubs from. So if he's got another big bulk lot, that could really push me closer to 900,000 by the end of the year. So we'll see, but that's kind of the plan. I'd love it to be around the time of the National, so I can actually, because if I want a Grail card to be my millionth card, where am I going to find it? The National.
Indeed. One last comment says, you should make it rain Cubs cards like a rap music video. Yep. All right. Yeah. So guys, make sure to go to his website and send him your Cubs cards that you don't want, like junk wax or whatever. And
even if they're bent, like I'll take them. Like,
yeah, I'm gonna definitely go through it one of these days, and I'm just gonna mail it to you because there's no use for some of these junk wax cards. But anyways, before I let you go, so how can people follow you? I know you have some exposure to different social media sites.
Absolutely. So the easiest way to find me on all platforms is 1millioncubs.com. And that'll take you to all the various channels. I'm on Twitter's like my main social media platform that I'm on the most, at 1 million Cubs, and that's all spelled out 1 million Cubs. Same on Instagram, 1 million Cubs. The 1 million Cubs project is on Facebook. Let's see, what am I missing? YouTube channel is 1 million Cubs. My eBay store is 1 million Cubs. And again, 1millioncubs.com will direct you to any of those. And you can read some old blog posts on the website as well.
Indeed. Yeah. This has been a fun podcast. Definitely connecting with the Cubs fan. Thanks for coming on, Bo.
Hey, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, for sure.